Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. The latest in Midtown Manhattan shooting that left 5 people dead, including the shooter. What police are saying about a possible motive. President Trump officially opens his second 18-hole golf course at Trump International in Aberdeen, Scotland. The Department of Agriculture facing a lawsuit from mostly Democratic states. Why the department wants to collect data on food stamp recipients and why the states are against the move. We talked to a leader in the conservative grassroots movement. She has just been named the new executive vice president of Heritage Action, and this will be one of her first media appearances. China is quietly waging war on the U.S. without firing a shot. American thought leaders host Yannick Kellick sits down with General Michael Flynn to reveal the full story.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. Information keeps coming in about the tragic shooting last night in a Midtown Manhattan office building. Police say a 3-page suicide note found in the shooter's wallet said football gave him CTE, which is a brain condition caused by repeated head trauma. NTD's Stefania Cox brings us more from the site.
Yeah, I'm here at 345 Park Avenue where this tragedy happened. As you can see behind me, the American flag and the New York flag are flying at half-mast today. Meanwhile, NYPD officers are stationed around the building where this terrible incident occurred. Police say the gunman, identified as Shane Tamura, a 27-year-old from Las Vegas, had a documented history of mental health issues, though no significant criminal record. Regarding a possible motive, a note found on Tamura, as you mentioned, referenced grievances with the NFL, which houses its headquarters here in this building. The note also had a plea to study something called CTE in regards to Tamura, which he believed that he had, it seems. Now that is called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and that's something that is caused by repeated injury to the head. Now, Tamura previously played high school football and later worked as a security guard in Las Vegas. He had no direct ties to the NFL, and it's not known if he indeed had CTE, though CTE can lead to irrational behavior, depression, and other impacts on the brain. Yeah, Blackstone executive Wesley LePatner is the second victim that's been identified in this tragic shooting. The first was NYPD officer Diderol Islam. He was providing security at the building last night. He leaves behind a wife, 2 sons, and a baby on the way, tragically. 5 people have died in this incident, and a 6th person was critically injured, but they are now in stable condition. Mayor Eric Adams praised the efforts of the NYPD officers who went into the building last night and scoured each floor following the attack. He did say that the investigation continues, as you heard earlier, and they're still searching to confirm the motive and also to see if there were any other potential weapons involved. Back to you.
The Manhattan building where Monday's shooting took place serves as the headquarters of both the NFL and investment management firm Blackstone. 2 of the victims have been identified. The New York City Police Department released a photo of slain officer Diderol Islam. The 36-year-old was working a corporate security detail Monday at the Midtown skyscraper, where the shooter opened fire. Islam served as a police officer in New York City for 3.5 years. He leaves behind a pregnant wife and 2 sons. Blackstone confirmed with NTD that Senior Managing Director Wesley LePatner was fatally shot as well. Blackstone said in a statement LePatner was, quote, brilliant, passionate, warm, generous, and deeply respected within our firm and beyond. The statement added, quote, our prayers are with her husband, children, and family. We are also saddened by the loss of the other innocent victims as well, including brave security personnel and NYPD. A 5th victim, an NFL employee, remains in critical condition. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is providing more details about the investigation into last night's deadly shooting in Manhattan. The attack claimed 4 lives, including 1 New York City police officer. The 27-year-old shooter also killed himself after the attack. Earlier today, Mayor Adams said the shooter was targeting an NFL agency in the building. Here's what the mayor was talking about in terms of the efforts to determine the shooter's motive.
The investigation is continuing. We're sending 2 teams to Las Vegas, one to execute a search warrant and the other to look at the 2 firearms and guns that were recovered. The motive appeared to be connected to the shooter's belief that he was suffering from CTE and he was an ex-NFL player. Those items just don't pan out. He never played for the NFL. And so we're still unraveling this terrible shooting that took place in the city. We had a large number of bullets that were found in the car, but at this time, the investigation has not concluded if he was going to take more actions.
According to law enforcement, the shooter, Shane Tamura, has a documented mental health history. The shooter was armed with an M4 rifle and opened fire in an office building before killing himself. Mayor Adams says law enforcement is looking into how he obtained the weapon.
We're looking into that. That is why our team is going to Las Vegas to do a thorough investigation into the firearms to find out were they legally possessed and were they on his permit and was he allowed to follow. But that is part of the ongoing investigation that our detectives are going to carry out in Las Vegas.
As for the suspected shooter and the response, retired NYPD Captain John Monahan shared his insights with CNN. He compared this suspected gunman to the man accused of killing United Healthcare CEO in December last year.
It was quite brazen. That video, that photo of him walking across that plaza, it's striking. But as Darren just said, he knew he was going to die that night. And you can tell he was at peace with that. Unlike Luigi, who tried to make an escape, this man knew it was the end. He was very calm. And it's shocking to see a long gun like that. 51st and Park, Caitlin, that's one of the nicest neighborhoods in New York City. Really.
Monahan called the response from law enforcement fantastic. He noted that there was a patrol response to clear the building and at the same time trying to figure out how many shooters there were and who the shooter was. The retired captain praised Officer Islam, who lost his life, calling the situation horrifying and infuriating. Monahan also questioned where the suspect got the gun from. He said the investigation will backtrack the gunman's every step leading into and through New York, his past employment, and the pistol permit he had.
One of my sources, he runs a global security for a bank on that block, was telling me that he's a disgruntled employee. Now, that may not mean he was an employee of that building. Maybe that's where the corporate offices were for the firm he worked for out in Vegas. Who knows? But that's one piece of information I just got. And also I hear that
Meanwhile, a coalition of mostly Democratic states is suing the Trump administration over the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. Here's California Attorney General Rob Bonta.
Alongside 20 attorneys general and a governor's office, we're suing the U.S. Department of Agriculture for demanding that we turn over deeply personal data about every single applicant and recipient of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP, in our state, and for threatening to withhold funding unless we comply. Now the Trump administration is demanding that states turn over personal sensitive data, names, social security numbers, home addresses, even for people who applied years ago.
SNAP is a program that provides billions of dollars in food assistance to tens of millions of low-income families across the country. It's funded by the federal government and administered by each state. USDA says it intends to use the collected data to ensure the integrity of SNAP, including by verifying the eligibility of benefit recipients. Attorneys general who are filing the lawsuit say the federal government requests could scare people away from such programs. They also claim the Trump administration is trying to target immigrant communities by doing so. The plaintiffs include New York, California, Michigan, and Washington, D.C. And joining us now to discuss the 21 states suing to block USDA from collecting SNAP data is Tony Kinnett, national correspondent to Daily Signal and host of the Tony Kinnett Cast radio show and podcast. Good to see you again, Tony. So Mike can't be with us today. Apparently his power's out. There's a storm in Florida. So just you today, these states are arguing USDA is exceeding its authority by demanding that states hand over personal information. What do you think? What legal restrictions are there in data collection of this type by the federal government?
So, as we've seen so far, there's not really anything in local or state policy, at least any of the state or Commonwealth constitutions, which say they can't share certain data they collect with the federal government. If federal dollars are flowing in, they can say, where are these dollars going? That's in the plenary power of the Congress, both houses, as well as every single federal section of the judiciary branch, from the federal district courts all the way up through the appellate and the Supreme Courts, the executive agencies as well. That's been the case since 1875. So in case of the SNAP benefits, obviously a newer approach, there are two things that I do want to draw a little bit of question and concern regarding this lawsuit. First of all, it is something that Americans are concerned about, that SNAP benefits are going to those who need it most, those who are unable to work, those who aren't making enough to make ends meet, who are trying to provide for families, especially with young children. As a former teacher, I wanted to make sure that my students were getting meals not just during the year, but also during the summer, and that every single dollar that was spent to that was going to those kids. Accountability and transparency are important. But regarding the immigration issue that you cited right before I hopped on screen, I will say it's strange here, because illegal immigration, I was told that illegal immigrants weren't receiving SNAP benefits. Are they or aren't they? Because they shouldn't be receiving them according to state and federal law. And additionally, immigrant communities, well, yes, there are certain provisions that immigrant communities who are legally allowed to be here, they have visas, or they are immigrant now legal citizens of the United States. That's totally fine. I'm not really sure what the issue is there, other than this seems like political posturing over money coming in. That's a little suspicious.
Okay, you make some good points there, Tony. But in your view, how much influence should the government have over state-run programs like SNAP?
So here's the thing. If the state was levying funds, so I'm here in Indiana, right? So normally if Indiana's collecting taxes for me, we don't exactly have the lowest property taxes in the country, which is quite a shame. The Indiana government then decides how to spend my money. Now, I may not agree with how I like that particular money spent, but the Indiana government is not necessarily responsible to then deliver all of the data on that to the federal government, and the feds don't have to approve how Indiana is spending its money. But if the feds are sending money to the states, the reason that states have administration over those particular funds is not because they're giving the states the power over SNAP. It's because state legislatures and agencies likely speak with people who are citizens of those states more than some individual in a Washington, D.C. executive agency office. So it's not that the state has control over it to decide who does and doesn't get SNAP from a legality perspective. It's that they're stewards, right? They are down the chain of command on this. And the federal government is saying, as long as you follow federal law, which is what's currently under question, then you can administrate SNAP. Just as, on your network, you guys have producers, you have senior producers and tech producers who don't get to make up their own rules. They do what the chain of command says, just like my editor-in-chief. She tells me what to do, and I start getting a little bit loose with things. Yeah, the hand might get a little bit tighter when it comes to performance review time.
So we have to ask the question when it comes to data collection, especially when it comes to the government, perhaps. What is their track record, when the federal government or agencies collect data? How often are they using that data legitimately to uncover fraud or abuse?
I'm not sure what you mean by how often do they use that legitimately, as opposed to what maybe in this case.
Well, what is the track record? I mean, Republicans apparently are in support of this move, but if the roles are reversed and a Democrat administration is collecting data, would we feel different about it when it comes to your personal data, right, being in the hands of certain government agencies when it comes to food assistance, like SNAP, for example?
Well, if you're taking SNAP benefits, then again, you are taking federal dollars. Those aren't just state dollars, those are federal dollars. And so again, if the government is going to keep track of how they're spending money, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican administration, that's an essential. Again, as a former teacher and education policy advisor, I know that federal tax dollars that do go towards state education departments, those include a little flagging system that includes some kinds of personal data. But the data isn't scrutinized for anything nefarious, rather than saying, yes, this individual is receiving these particular state or federal benefits. I don't see anything in some of the complaints that have been issued by the state's attorneys general that are suggesting this data could be used for something nefarious unless there are individuals participating in the program who are, by federal law, not allowed to participate in the program. But that's no different than Social Security fraud. I mean, if I was on SNAP benefits, the federal government should already know that, except this has been delineated to various states over the years because it simply wasn't something the federal government was intent on looking. And, well, I mean, you don't really have to look at the engine under the hood of the car as long as the light's not on and the car's running fine. But if smoke starts pouring out of the hood, you're no longer going to be relying on the little light on the dashboard to say, hey, there's an engine problem. You might have to lift up the hood and take a look to double check.
So I guess the core question is, I mean, there has to be a right balance between oversight and your personal privacy. For example, should immigration status be known to certain federal agencies when it comes to SNAP?
Absolutely. Because again, according to federal law, illegal immigrants are not allowed to participate in SNAP unless they're fulfilling very specific federal rules in very, very specific cases. And by the way, those very specific cases, I want them to enjoy those particular benefits. I want immigrants here who are below a certain financial threshold to enjoy those benefits, just like I want American citizens who are below a certain threshold to enjoy SNAP benefits so that they can essentially use that as a leg up to essentially escape from that, right? So they can put themselves on better financial footing, so they can perhaps escape some certain debts, so they can get out of certain problems, processes, so they can gain a better footing on their job or housing. That's what the program is for. And if there are individuals who are on that program, there's no shame in that particular program. There's no shame in that status being known to the federal government. I have yet to see anything that suggests that the federal government is going to say, yes, we know there's illegal immigrants out there on SNAP, but if we only knew who they were, we'd round them up en masse. We haven't seen any of that so far. We've seen individuals that are arrested alongside violent criminals that are at the exact same place that those individuals committing violent crimes are congregating. Right now, I don't see anything to suggest that personal data is maybe being sacrificed here because the government is taking a look at who is participating in federal government programs.
How do you view potentially the federal government pulling funding for certain states who refuse to provide these data?
Well, again, if you are going to take federal dollars, then you have to play by the rules, because the idea of federal dollars is if you're in California, again, I'm in Indiana, you are going to abide by federal law. So I, as a Hoosier, agree to pay money towards assisting your state in something, along with the citizens of Nebraska and Iowa and Florida and New York and et cetera ad nauseum. So if your state doesn't play by those rules, you don't get access to the money. Federal funds are not things the states are owed. They are things the states participate in. You have to play by federal rules in order to gain access to federal funds. So I see that as a fair thing. If you just get access to the money no matter what, well, then why do you have to play by federal law, federal rules? You're just going to get the check in the mail anyway, so why bother? And I think this has become a massive financial strain and a massive social and institutional strain that's caused a lot of distrust between Americans in different states, because certain states play by the rules and certain states and commonwealths don't. And that's a significant issue when we roll around to certain Senate and House elections in which people are running on vastly different things regarding federal policy that not everyone's playing the same rules for. And this is how you get anger over things like, for example, SALT deductions that are very unpopular with the vast majority of Americans.
Do taxpayers have a right to know if their dollars are going to undocumented immigrants?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that taxpayers have a right to know if their dollars are going anywhere. What about being proud of tax dollars? I love seeing my tax dollars be spent in ways that should be spent responsibly. This is something we don't ever talk about because, we hate taxes. We throw tea into the harbor over unjust taxes. There is a possible future, albeit an unlikely one, in which Americans can reach a point where they are satisfied on certain programs their tax dollars are going to. And I think that as long as there are programs consistently that are hidden from view, I don't get to say whether I want those monies to go there or not. Maybe there are Americans who do want monies going to X number of illegal immigrants on SNAP benefits. But we're not going to know if people are trying to play fast and loose with that data. Again, either the government is totally accountable to the people or it is not. And some mid-level bureaucrat or some state official doesn't get to decide how I, in a completely different state, spend my taxes that I'm required to annually, and then that money goes to them regardless, is incredibly unfair to me, and it is technically a violation of taxation without representation.
Okay, real quick, we just have about 30 seconds. Do you think this sets a precedent for future administrations to do similar things in terms of data collection?
I don't think that it's really precedent in this particular case because we've seen this before. It's more of a federal law question. And yeah, I think that future administrations, if there are programs administrated by the state but funded by the federal government, yes, the federal government should have oversight over it. Again, it's the money of everyone, yours, mine, those who are watching. We should get to see where those dollars go, whether it's rebuilding homes in Maui, whether it's looking at FEMA efforts in North Carolina, or whether we're looking at SNAP benefits and who they go to in various states. We all have a stake in it. Therefore, we get to see what's inside.
Okay, Tony. Well, it's been good to talk to you. I wish Mike was here. It would have been more fun conversation.
Same.
Not saying that it's not fun. It was very fun today. Thank you very much.
Take care. Look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Yep. Next, President Trump cuts the red tape and red ribbon and takes the first swing at his newly opened golf course in Scotland. It's a grand finale to his first 5-day visit, and he takes a shot by the nearby windmill, saying Britain should drill for oil and gas instead. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more for us.
President Trump walks across the grounds to the sound of Scottish bagpipes. It's the opening ceremony for his brand new 18-hole golf course near Aberdeen, Scotland. He cuts the ribbon and takes the first swing.
It's going to be great. I look forward to playing it today. We'll play it very quickly, and then I go back to D.C. and we put out fires all over the world. We did one yesterday. As you know, we stopped a war, but we've stopped about 5 wars. So that's much more important than playing golf. As much as I like it, it's much more important.
This wraps up his 5-day visit to Scotland. Initially billed as a private visit, the trip quickly morphed into a diplomatic mission, including a trade agreement sealed with the European Union and bilateral meetings with British officials. Trump praised British Prime Minister Keir Starmer for the US-UK trade deal.
And it's a very big deal and a great deal for the country, and it's a great deal for everybody. So I just want to thank him and everybody that worked so hard on it. They've been trying to get it done for 12 years. We got it done, so somebody did a good job.
In the morning, Trump turned his attention to energy. He said on Truth Social, North Sea oil is a treasure chest for Britain, but said UK taxes are too high to motivate energy companies to drill. Oil and gas companies in the UK face a 78% tax, and British Energy Secretary Ed Miliband decided to ban new drilling in the North Sea, instead prioritising renewable energy. On Monday, Trump took pot shots at the windmills off the coast of his Aberdeen golf course.
When we go to Aberdeen, you'll see some of the ugliest windmills you've ever seen. They're the height of a 50-story building. And you can take 1,000 times more energy out of a hole in the ground this big. This big. It's called oil and gas.
He said windmills require massive government subsidies in order to run. This includes subsidies that pay energy companies when the windmills are not running. Trump said there's a fortune to be made in oil and gas, as well as far cheaper energy for the British people. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
Happening now, Senator John Thune is speaking after the Senate party luncheon. We're going to tune into that.
Democrats are in trying to get the appropriations process moving forward. Obviously, I would say all options are on the table when it comes to funding the government. But what I can tell you is we are going to look for ways to keep the government funded and open and operating. And what we hear, at least rhetorically, coming out of the Democrats right now is they have a very different view of the world. And they're already talking openly about a shutdown. And I think the politics on their side of the aisle right now is such that, as I said, the far left, the wing of their party in the Senate is calling the shots. And I don't think that's in anybody's best interest. So I'm not taking any options off the table. But what I will tell you today is that as we look at this week and then the subsequent weeks coming in September, I intend to use those weeks to try and get appropriation bills done so that when we get to that year-end conversation, we're prepared to have hopefully a substantive conversation about what the best way is to fund the government.
Thank you so much, sir. You have a situation situation now where the president says the images coming out of Gaza are bad. He's thinking about opening food centers there. You have a Republican, Marjorie Taylor Greene, calling it a genocide. You have American support for Benjamin Netanyahu slipping. What do you say?
Well, I think that I share the president's view. I think that the humanitarian thing, obviously, when you see people hurting in a need like that, is to want to help meet that need and alleviate that pain. And so I think our government and I think other governments around the world, other nations, are very interested in doing what they can to make sure that people who, through no fault of their own, are being harmed by what's happening there. But you got to understand, too, that when you've got a terrorist group like Hamas operating in that region, they're going to intercept and divert a lot of that food aid that's going in there. And I think that's the challenge that the Israelis have, that's the challenge that we have and other nations around the world who are trying to step in and help. But I don't think, I think all of us want to see, obviously, a peaceful solution there that gets the hostages freed and ends the reign and rule of Hamas in the region. But in the meantime, do everything we can to ease the pain and the hunger that's afflicting so many of the people in that region of the world.
Another issue you spoke about this morning was agriculture, the safety net provisions in the One Big Beautiful Bill. We still don't have a 5-year farm bill. Given everything else going on in your calendar this fall, what do you see as the prospects of finishing the job? I'm talking about food security. You're talking against, many have said, national security. And we still don't have that.
Yeah, well, and it is every bit of that. Food security is a national security issue. Certainly other countries around the world view it that way. And yes, I would love to get the elements of the Farm Bill that didn't get done in the One Big Beautiful Bill dealt with in a normal way through the regular bipartisan 60-vote threshold way of doing things around here. But that said, we did do a ton of Farm Bill policy in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Everything from the safety net programs, the agriculture risk coverage program, price loss coverage program, those were addressed, reference prices were raised, risk management was addressed through crop insurance, a lot of conservation policy in there, a lot of disaster policy with regard to livestock in particular. So there were a number of things done in the One Big Beautiful Bill that address what has been a problem, and that is that we haven't been able to get a bipartisan farm bill across the finish line in the last couple of years. Are there other things that need to be done? Yes. But I think we made good headway there, and we'll look for opportunities to finish the job. But remember, it's hard to find time to do things on the floor when you're spending all your time on nominations, which is where we are right now. And if the Democrats, they can change that if they want to, but it's very hard to do substantive legislation at a time when we're dealing with personnel 24/7, which is the situation we find ourselves in right now. And as I said, that's going to change. And if it doesn't change, we're going to, we're going to grind it out here, and Democrats are going to be here whether they like it or not.
And you were just watching Senator John Thune talking to the press and taking reporter questions, including the humanitarian situation in Gaza and as well as preventing foreign adversaries from purchasing farmland in the U.S., talking about national security and equating it with food security. And we're going to take a break now. We talked to a leader in the conservative grassroots movement. She has just been named the new executive vice president of Heritage Action, and this will be one of her first media appearances. Stay tuned for that.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritane green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritane omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritane green vegetable omega-3, greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains.
And now we're joined by a leader who's had a big impact on grassroots activism in America, from her work on school boards to co-funding Moms for Liberty. Tiffany Justice has been a dedicated advocate for parental rights. Now she's stepping into a new major role as Executive Vice President of Heritage Action, leading a network of 2.5 million activists nationwide. So Tiffany, first off, I think congratulations are in order. I mean, it's a big moment, it's a big role for you, for Heritage Action, for the broader conservative grassroots movement. So yeah, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I think it is a great moment for Americans in general, because I was a mom who got involved in politics in 2016. I ran for school board because I saw that there were people that were making bad decisions. And I thought, well, I could get involved, right? I can make a difference. And so now to be leading Heritage Action, as you said, 2.5 million activists across the country, we're going to continue to grow that. I think it's just a message to the American people that now is the time to step up and get involved.
Yeah, we'll get into all that, but first, you have to tell us, how do you feel? Are you excited? What was going through your mind when you first got the offer to take on this new role?
Yeah, I was really honored. Honestly, Kevin Roberts is a wonderful leader. He's the president of the Heritage Foundation, and I've been at the Heritage Foundation for the past 6 months leading a parental rights initiative. Parents are about 25% of voters across America, and we know that education is a major issue for Americans. We have so many children that are not learning to read in our public schools, and school choice is a really big motivating issue for voters. And so I've really been working to empower parents to get involved, and now to be able to lead Heritage Action and to help those activists to find other ways to be involved is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, you've worn many hats over the years, as you said now, and as I mentioned earlier. I'm curious, what motivates you, to do all these things over such a long period of time?
The most important hat I wear is as a mom. I have 4 kids, and everything that I do getting involved in politics is to make sure that they lead happy, productive lives in a free society. I think that's what every American wants. The issues that we're struggling with in America are so much bigger than Republican or Democrat. These are human issues. The idea that boys can't become girls, girls can't become boys, right? The fact that we want our kids to thrive in schools, that we want our kids to be able to graduate from high school and college and be able to have jobs, to be able to own a house. These are things that all Americans share, these wants for their family. And so that's what drives me, being a mom, being a parent, and really loving our country.
And you touched on this point earlier about grassroots in moving politics in America. Would you like to elaborate on that? How important is the grassroots movement?
The grassroots movement won President Trump the election. There is no doubt about it. So many people had to rethink the way that they've been voting in the past, in this past election cycle. The Democrats keep going further and further to the left. They're leaving behind lots of voters. As I said before, people don't want boys playing in girls' sports. People, again, want to be able to buy a house. They want to live in a free America. They don't want to have their First Amendment rights censored and taken away. And so as the left continues to go down this horrible path that they are on, we're going to continue to scoop up new voters, whether it's making America healthy again, creating more economic opportunity, or more educational freedom. I have no doubt that we're going to continue to grow the conservative movement.
Okay, you mentioned a couple of points. For example, keeping men out of women and girls' sports. In your opinion, what do you think is the most pressing matter or goal for this movement over the next few months and years?
to make sure that communists like Mamdani don't win elections, to make sure that conservatives and Republicans gain power. This is all about gaining and acquiring power. It's what the left does so beautifully, and they have a very sophisticated grassroots network that they've grown over the past 20 years. And so it's time for us to get involved, to step up. I think more Americans than ever realized during COVID that we hadn't been as involved in the political process as we need to be. So now is the time to take action. And what Democrats need to know is that we're not going to lose the elections in 26. We're not going to lose the presidency in 28. We're going to ensure that President Trump can continue to get the amazing work done that he started in the White House, and we're going to ensure that our kids have a bright future in a free country.
And I think that's a very important point. You mentioned in that response and earlier as well, where you're saying the grassroots movement sort of really won the election for President Trump, right? Yep. So, I mean, I haven't really seen that in my time here in the news. So talk to us about what makes today's conservative grassroots movement unique?
The fact that I think we woke up to the fact that we were losing our country during COVID. Americans were shocked to see the overreach of the government. They were shocked to see the bureaucracy. They were shocked to see decisions being made that put our kids on the back burner. Again, this mayoral race in New York, shocked to see someone who openly says that he's a socialist, that we know is a communist, maybe coming into power. And so these types of things are really waking Americans up to the fact that there is a very dark movement by the Democrats to take control, capture institutions, whether it's the judiciary or our education system, and now is the time to rise up and take our power back. Heritage Action does amazing work in states. There are sentinels, and if anyone's listening, they should go to Heritage Action website. They should sign up to be a sentinel, because what we're going to do is give them the best resources, tools, and information so they can create awareness in their communities and they can make change happen at the ballot box.
And you mentioned education. Yeah. What would you like there to be changed?
I would like for kids to learn to read. If a child doesn't read by the time they're in 3rd grade, then they can't read to learn. And the fact that we are not teaching American kids how to read, considering how much money we spend on education, is absolutely abysmal. We are relegating these kids to a life of struggle and crime. 75% of the kids who are in the juvenile justice system are functionally illiterate. So we know if kids can't read, they can't be successful in life. You tell me what American parent doesn't want their child to learn to read. And so we need to start expecting more out of these systems. The parents are demanding choice and opportunity. The most important thing that we can do in education is put parents into the driver's seat. And Secretary McMahon, I'm so excited for the work that she's been doing, and I know that she's committed, as President Trump is, to making sure that parents have the choice as to where to send their kids to school.
I mean, it's a difficult task. We've tried for many years, and what do you think will make it different this time with President Trump in office?
Because he's not messing around. And he's brought real operators in, like Linda McMahon, Secretary McMahon, who are going to do what it is the American people want. President Trump received a mandate from the American people. We want change. We want taxpayer funding for philanthropy to stop. We want our First Amendment rights, our civil rights, to stop being violated. We want to have freedom to live as we know we need to raise our children as we see fit. And President Trump made a commitment to me when I interviewed him while he was on the campaign trail. Everything that he's done since he's taken office has shown that he means business. And, you know, parents are ready to take back our country and to make sure that our kids grow up in a free and thriving America.
So I can tell you've interacted, you've worked with many families, everyday Americans. What's the most rewarding thing about that for you?
Yeah, it's been amazing to see grassroots activists getting involved and making a difference. Again, I think a lot of people thought being a politician was something someone else did. Like, you go and live your life, you have a business, you raise a family, and somebody else runs for office. The most amazing thing that I've really seen is Americans taking the bull by the horns, getting involved, running for office, being a part of campaigns, seeing their friends win and gain elected power, and then turning communities around. Honestly, you know, as someone running for school board, you get on that school board, you start reallocating funds, get back to the basics, you change kids' lives.
And I think that's a really common thing where people think perhaps politics is somebody else's business. Yeah. So what do you say to those people who think perhaps politics is too big for them to make a difference?
Go to Heritage Action's website, sign up to be a member, sign up to be a sentinel, and I promise we're going to put the resources, tools, and information in your hands that you need in order to make a difference in your own community and state.
Okay, just one final question.
Sure.
What gives you hope for America's direction?
My kids. seeing the kids at the Heritage Foundation who come in as interns, the hope that they have, the love for our country, seeing leaders like President Trump and J.D. Vance who are willing to step up and serve and to brave the storm in order to make big change happen. That gives me hope right now.
Well, Tiffany, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. And again, congratulations on the new role.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, up next, China is quietly waging a war on the U.S. without firing a shot. American thought leaders host Yanni Kellick sits down with General Michael Lin to reveal the full story. We'll have that and more after the break.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. How did I get here?
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
That first time seeing my son, I feel like my life did a 180. I was already trying to change my perspective of life and really just be a father figure that I never had. Being present is the most important part. I'm still growing every day. Becoming a better version of myself. To be the better mirror for my son. I mean, he's just growing. He's becoming his own person. Man, at first I saw him dance, bro, he brings the vibes, you know what I'm saying? He brings the party no matter what. He really a definition of like why he loves somebody. And I love him to the death of me.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School, college first-round draft pick, on and off the field. We were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating, but I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20-plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. And then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
Israel is responding to international criticism over the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said today that the situation in Gaza is tough, but accusations of starvation are false.
We are aware of the fact that there are countries in Europe today with a huge Muslim populations. Sometimes it affects the policies of their governments. But this cannot and will not lead Israel to commit suicide. We won't allow a jihadist terror state in the heart of our ancient homeland. It ain't gonna happen.
Israel on Sunday announced a halt in military operations for 10 hours a day in parts of Gaza. New aid corridors were also set up. Jordan and the United Arab Emirates airdropped supplies into the enclave. The Israeli foreign minister called out what he offered, or rather referred to as a campaign of international pressure to end the war with Hamas still in power. Meanwhile, dozens of trucks carrying aid bound for Gaza moved from Egypt yesterday for a third consecutive day. This is after Israel eased the blockade on the Palestinian enclave. Global Hunger Monitor says the food consumption threshold for famine has already been passed for most areas in Gaza. At least 27 civilians are reported dead across Ukraine today. 17 were inmates in a Ukrainian prison. Officials say Russia struck the jail using glide bombs. The prison is located in southeastern Ukraine. A Ukrainian official says the facility buildings were destroyed in the attack. It came exactly 3 years after a Russian strike on a different jail killed over 50 Ukrainian prisoners of war. Ukraine says missiles also hit medical facilities in central Ukraine today, including a maternity hospital. At least 3 people are reported dead, including a 23-year-old pregnant woman. Today's attacks came just hours after President Trump announced a 50-day deadline, or rather reduced it, for Russia down to 10 or 12 days. The president warns he might hit Moscow with sanctions and secondary tariffs if no peace deal is reached by then. The Kremlin today said that it took note of President Trump's statement and that Russia remains committed to the peace process. How far back does China's influence campaign in the U.S. go? Experts say it goes further than you might think, tracing back decades to a quiet, strategic push that began during the Clinton administration. The focus? Education and getting into America's top universities. Here's the host of American Thought Leaders, Yannick Kellick, breaking it all down with retired General Michael Flynn, former National Security Advisor to President Trump.
So during the Clinton administration, one of the things that they allowed, particularly in the second term of Bill Clinton, was they allowed the Chinese government to begin to send a large number of students to colleges and universities, and they also had massive spying operations. So this began in the second half of the 90s, and all it has done is it's grown and grown and grown in time. So what the Chinese decided to do is they began to really work hard on taking over the United States of America in a very sort of subverted way, in a very quiet, covert way. So all ties into 2016 and 2017 and your question about this famous conversation I had with the Russian ambassador, which amounted to nothing, right? They knew, and you can go back and look at, a lot of other things that I've said over time or I've written about, and I've been writing about things for a long time, about this issue, about the rise of communism in the United States of America. What drives me is this country, and that's where Trump and I connected. If there's one thing that we both firmly believe in, it's the greatness of America.
From fentanyl to biowarfare, Flynn says China's strategy is extensive, all aimed at weakening America from the inside. And with tensions rising, he warns the stakes are just as high on the global stage. Flynn was asked whether President Trump could pull off a bold geopolitical move, breaking up China's alliance with Russia.
So the Chinese were very smart about who they were going to work with. And they began to work with the drug cartels because, one, it's a lot of money, but that's less of it for them. The money is an element of it, but it's about undermining and basically physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually killing the United States of America, and doing it in such a damaging way. When you think about fentanyl, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of Americans that are killed in action on the battlefields, on the streets of America. Never mind the wounded in action, right? To use military terms.
And that's the unrestricted battlefield from the Chinese perspective, which is everything.
Yeah. One of the things that we know recently, but it doesn't get a lot of coverage in the mainstream media, is the use of biological warfare against our farming industry. Okay, bringing in biological components to damage or destroy, in some cases, entire components of our agricultural industries, okay, of our farming capabilities. Never mind making sure that you have people in here that know how to do electronics, that know how to, they come in and now they're citizens. Now they're citizens of this country working directly for the Chinese government. Some of them are in our government. Some of them are actually in our government.
So 2 quick questions just as we actually finish up. One is, do you think President Trump, given the difficult realities, frankly, could be able to pull off a reverse Kissinger and pull Russia out of this deep, no limits, as it's called, alliance with the Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah, I do believe that. I do believe that Trump has the potential and the capability and the intellect to do it. I do know that if he doesn't, the Russian leadership is desperately afraid of China taking over Russia. And east of the people that want to study geography, you know, if you look at the Ural Mountains, east of the Ural Mountains is an extraordinary amount of resources, and the Chinese want it. And the Chinese right now, as I sit here with you, they are working to take over a lot of those resources. So Trump can do it. If there's one person that can do it, he can pull Russia out of that orbit. If we don't, then we have an alliance that's much more dangerous for the existence of the United States of America. And there are people in our government that want that. They want that tension, and we can't have it.
To watch the full episode, visit American Thought Leaders with Jan Jekielek at theepochtimes.com. And China Daily, the Chinese Communist Party state-run newspaper, is no longer being delivered to the offices of British members of Parliament. British MP Alicia Kearns said it was completely wrong for British taxpayers' money to fund the CCP's attempt to influence British politics. She said China Daily is a blatant attempt to paint false narratives about atrocities committed by the Chinese regime and the threat it poses abroad. Kearns said she was grateful that China Daily is no longer being automatically delivered to MPs' offices. The government said it reviewed the mailing of unsolicited materials to MPs. The review limited the size and weight of bulk mailings. MPs must now opt in to receive mailings like China Daily. The government said that at present, no MPs subscribe to that publication. Up next, JetBlue and United Airlines are teaming up, getting the green light for their planned partnership. We have that and more after the break.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-210-6422, 800-210-6422.
£6 prescription glasses from Select Specs are always great value. There are no offer codes or first-time customers only. Anyone can buy them, anytime. And you can upgrade to Select Specs Express for next day delivery. And with deferred payment, you can spread the cost.
See now, pay later with Select Specs £6 specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options available at selectspecs.com/£6.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know.
how to safely build a fire, and how to control the flames. But I can only teach wildfire prevention. Only you can prevent wildfires.
Union Pacific is offering to buy smaller rival Norfolk Southern in an $85 billion deal. The merger will create the nation's first coast-to-coast freight rail operator. If approved, the deal would combine two rail powerhouses. Union Pacific is the major rail operator in the western two-thirds of the U.S. Norfolk's 19,000-mile network primarily spans 22 eastern states. The two railroads are expected to have a combined enterprise value of $250 billion. The deal would mark the largest ever buyout in the sector. JetBlue and United Airlines are teaming up. The two carriers have now cleared the Department of Transportation's review of their planned partnership. In May, JetBlue and United unveiled a partnership dubbed Blue Sky. Blue Sky would allow travelers to book flights on both carriers' websites. Customers would also be able to earn and use points interchangeably in their frequent flyer programs. Under the agreement, JetBlue would also provide United access to slots at New York's JFK International Airport. In June, budget carrier Spirit Airlines urged the Transportation Department to deny the partnership between the two airlines. Spirit said the deal was anti-competitive and would prompt other large carriers to team up. JetBlue and United said that Blue Sky would begin introducing new customer benefits starting this fall. Coming up, U.S. and Chinese officials wrap up trade talks in Sweden today, what the Treasury Secretary says about extending a tariff truce for China, who is facing a deadline in 2 weeks. We have that and more after the break.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
If you love them enough to crawl into a play place to get them to come down, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.